I've been getting a lot of questions about the new Flex Reusable Disc. I have tried it, so now I can finally share my review. Hi, and welcome to the Period Nirvana channel. My name is Kim Rosas. I'm a reusable period products expert. If you're completely new to menstrual cups or discs, visit periodnirvana.com. You can take the quiz I designed that will help select the perfect menstrual cup or menstrual disc for you after you answer just a few questions. People ask all the time how they can support the work that I do here on Period Nirvana. You can actually do that by shopping with my store, Period.Shop. And when you shop there, you can also know that the products are proprietary, they're high quality, and they're only products that I would recommend. So that's another bonus. And if you're not in the US, one of the best things you can do to support the educational work is by subscribing here on YouTube and sharing the content. A few months ago, Flex announced that they were coming out with a reusable disc. It started with a pre-order, and of course, they have now shipped those, so people are receiving them. I did get my hands on it a little bit earlier than the general public. It takes me time to go through all the products in the queue for, this very in-demand vagina, because I had like a wait list of all these different products I had to test before, and I just was able to try it a few cycles ago. I'm actually behind on filming because life gets busy. Flex not only has a new product with the reusable menstrual disc, but they've kind of done a rebrand on their packaging, and I love the neon yellow. It's not my favorite package ever, but I do like it better than their old packaging, which was like white and gold. It shows you right on the box that it's like just a very simple reusable disc. And you can open it, and here is what is inside. It's your disc. Boop. They have included their disposable disc, and they have a cute pouch. Now, am I a fan of including disposable discs with a reusable disc? No. I don't think it makes much sense to include disposable discs when you're already buying a reusable. I think that because it's their flagship product, I know that they're pushing the disposable disc. I do kind of like the packaging on this, which is updated. It says, "Your mission, find the fornix," which is kind of cute. And the pouch has that wavy line thing that matches their wavy line, which is like a super popular theme. Their instructions are huge and super detailed, which I do really like. And it shows you the thumb trick, which I don't use. If you're brand new to menstrual discs, I wanna give you a quick demo. Menstrual discs, and in this case, the Flex Reusable, can be worn for up to 12 hours comfortably and safely at a time. It does look massive, it looks quite scary, but what happens is you fold it long ways and you insert it into your body. Discs are different than menstrual cups. They do not create a suction, meaning if you have an IUD, you might prefer a disc over a cup. And another benefit is that you can wear them during penetrative intercourse because they sit higher in the vaginal canal and they have a flat bottom. And in this case, for Flex specifically, has a very thin, flexible bottom. So we're going to insert. You want to angle it towards the tailbone and then push the front of the rim up. And interestingly, the Flex tip is to use your thumb. I always use a finger, and so I just don't know that I really have ever wanted to use the thumb trick because this is sort of the main finger that I use for insertion and it's already being used. I don't know. I know that probably that's just a quirk for me. You are absolutely welcome to use the thumb trick, but I've always just used my finger and it has worked great. And for removals, which is what everyone is curious about for menstrual discs specifically, there are a few ways you can remove a simple disc like Flex Reusable. I find pinching to be the most reliable and easiest and most effective way, meaning that you reach in with your thumb and your finger, you pinch the disc, you pull it out, you have a lot of control, you're able to keep it stable, keep it upright so that it is not very messy or as low mess as you could possibly get with a disc like this. The other method for removal is the one that most of these brands recommend, including Flex, which is a hook and pull. And with the Flex Reusable, I was able to achieve this at least once that I can remember because this basin is like really, really thin, but the rim is thick. And at one point I was able to do it, but I will say that I have a very pronounced pubic bone. So just like grabbing and pulling something usually pulls it right up against my pubic bone. Digging. I push a little bit sometimes to help me find the rim because it can be hard to get a hold of behind the pubic bone. Which is why sometimes the notch style menstrual discs like Cora and Salt have been a challenge for me to remove. But I think a lot of people could achieve the hook with a Flex Reusable, but if you can't, then you're just gonna need to get that thumb involved and pinch. But here is a, because the pubic bone is pronounced in the model, it's kind of difficult as well. Even when you use that finger pull method, you want to engage your thumb once it gets close to your entrance because you still want to have some stability and control for mess reasons. Now for the features of the Flex Reusable disc specifically. It is almost as basic as it gets from a menstrual disc perspective. It is a circle, but it does have one distinguishing feature, which we'll cover, but it was meant to look and feel a lot like their flagship product, which is the disposable Flex. And the Flex was meant to look and feel exactly like the soft disc. So these are basically the same product. One is black, one is pink. And as of a few years ago, Flex bought out the soft cup, soft disc instead company. So they're actually made by the same company. So whatever you buy, you're buying a Flex product essentially. Back to the features. This basket is extremely like a thin membrane. I haven't had any issues with durability myself because the brand Nixit is a very similar thinness. I couldn't even tell you what the millimeter is on this, but it is practically invisible, like almost immeasurable. It's so thin, but silicone is used for a reason. It has a lot of strength and durability even at this thinness. Unless you poke a hole, then it's immediately going to rip. So you definitely want to avoid using this Flex disc around anything sharp. I don't know why you would be doing so. The rim is thicker in the width, just the actual thickness of this part of the rim, than the Flex disposable. I'm sure they did that because they wanted it to be as firm as possible, but at some point you can only thicken it so much before it gets out of hand. So it is a compromise in firmness in that it doesn't match the firmness of the Flex disposable. It is still less firm. I would say on my firmness scale that the Flex Reusable is a 4.5, and I would say that the Flex disc is actually more than a 5. It's probably more like a 5.5 or 6, but my scale ends at 5, and it's just so much firmer than anything else that's reusable that you would have to go up a notch or two to like technically, accurately, in terms of steps, measure it out as like a 6 or a 5.5. So it's a 5, but I would say it's even firmer than a 5. And the kind of crowning achievement of this disc is an innovation that is really so simple. It's like, why hasn't this been done yet before? It has a tiny little notch, very small, very rounded. It's not going to be anything that's hard to clean, but it does exist in the internal part of the rim. Now watch when I fold it. It makes this part, which is thick, fold to be slimmer. And this is going to make insertion easier because it is essentially like a tapered object. This is why I like the punch down fold for menstrual cups, because it tapers to get wider, which makes things easier to insert. So in the Flex development process, they were looking at how can we make something easier to insert, whereas in other products, specifically Cora, Salt Disc, and the Hello Disc, which I was involved in designing, we were looking at how to make the discs less messy to remove. When it comes to the basin, I don't usually talk about the structure of the basket because, at least for me and in my experience and what I have observed, it doesn't usually make a big difference in terms of how it fits and functions for the user. It's not like, oh, the basket is super firm, it's uncomfortable, or oh, the basket is super thin, it's more comfortable. That said, really, because there are now more options of reusable discs available, I'm picking up a little sense of preference for a minority of menstrual disc users who use reusables who actually like the structured basket more. And discs with a firmer basket would be a Cora or a Salt or a Hello disc. Discs with like a really thin membraney kind of basket would be the Nixit brand, the Flex Reusable, and kind of in the middle is Luma. It has a little more structure than this thin basket, but it definitely doesn't have like enough structure that it holds shape like some of the other brands that I discussed. I actually don't have a preference when it comes to the amount it holds and how it functions when it comes to the basin. I've never noticed any of the products with a softer basin versus a firmer basin working better or worse. And when I used this product, as we'll get into the review, that had no effect. The disposable disc, soft disc, and Flex disc have always been the same size since the 90s when soft disc came out. This is a 69 millimeter diameter. And the Flex Reusable is the exact same diameter. Again, it is modeled after this product. The reason being is that this area called the vaginal fornix is pretty much a one-size-fits-all area. I know, I say that in every disc review and people say, well, this disc worked and this disc didn't and it was the size, but I'm talking about like the macro view of anatomy. Obviously, there are going to be differences in each individual person, which is why it's great that there are so many options. But again, looking at the macro view, most of you watching this are going to fit the Flex Reusable and a lot of those other one-size discs because that is just how we are made. If you have a lower cervix though, you probably don't want Flex Reusable or those one size or larger brands. It just depends on how low. If it's super, super low, you're not gonna have enough real estate to get the disc to tuck. But if it's moderately low, which I would say on my lower cervix days, I qualify as sort of a moderately, slightly low cervix, I can wear any one size reusable disc without issue. So if you're wondering if the Flex Reusable is going to fit you based on your pregnancy history, muscle tone, all that stuff, that is not a concern. I just did a recent video on how to find your menstrual disc size. I go way into depth on sizing, so you can kind of tune into that. I don't want to take too much time in this video talking about something I've already covered in depth, but generally speaking, most of you are just going to fit a disc that is the size of the Flex Reusable, 69 millimeters, give or take a few. You're kind of all in that range. When you talk about the attribute of the Flex Reusable being a firmer reusable disc, it's not as firm as Flex Disposable, but it is the firmest reusable disc. It used to be kind of the Luma was like really the firmest reusable disc, and then we had the Cora, then we had the Salt, and then we had the Luma, the Hello. They're all kind of in the same firmness range, but they were never as firm as Flex. And neither is this one, but it is closer. So firmness-wise, I don't really notice with this firmness, even though I didn't like the firmness of the Flex Disposable, this one was totally comfortable for me. So it is still not as firm as the Flex, meaning I like it. It's comfortable. Some people do find that a firmer disc applies a little bit of bladder pressure to them or that they just find it uncomfortable. I've yet to really experience that minus disposables. So even this one, which is intended to be firm, I still didn't get that. So that was a good experience for me. And of course, this disc is a clear disc. I prefer colors, and I personally prefer darker colors, just as a personal preference. So this will eventually stain, but that's okay. All menstrual products are going to stain eventually. You can do a little peroxide soak every few months. That's totally fine. I tried this a few cycles ago, but I actually started with a cup that cycle because I took a little vote on Instagram to see which people were more interested in me reviewing. It was between the Faya cup, which is sort of a European brand that's like a triangular cup, or the Flex Reusable, and then people voted for Faya, but as it turns out, Faya was just way too long for me to comfortably use for a full cycle.
That was so horrible.
So then I immediately switched over to the Flex Reusable.
Next.
And I used that for the remainder of the cycle.
So this folds, it's like more pointy, so easier. So it basically gets wider as you insert, which is not unusual for disc, but it's much firmer. Tucking.
I had a perfectly good experience with this disc. I am just made for discs. I feel like every disc review is kind of the same. It's like, yeah, it worked great. It was comfortable. It did not leak. I did not feel it. I could wear it the full 12 hours. Flex is a firmer disc, and so this comes into play with that phenomenon of self-emptying, which I have a full video about, so I don't like to go into a lot of details when I have a resource video, but simply put, self-emptying or auto-dumping is also called, is when you go to the bathroom only when you're having a number 1 or a number 2, and the combination of sitting and the pushing that you do on the toilet will tilt the disc so that some of its contents release. And that is a disc-wide phenomenon, not just Flex. It works for any disc, but each disc is going to differ in how it works for you based on the size, based on the firmness.
Nothing to show, but this serves as helping me remember things for reviews. I have gone to the bathroom, I've auto-dumped, I think every time I've gone to the bathroom with this disc, which is fine for me. But I do have like the tiniest bit of blood in my underwear, which is unusual, possibly residual from auto-dumping because I didn't wear period underwear, I wore regular underwear, like literally the lightest bit, but just enough to hit the underwear.
For my own experience with Flex Reusable, I did have some self-emptying moments. In my case, it went back into place. Sometimes you do want to check because it won't, so you need to, insert a finger or a thumb and push it back into place so that it doesn't leak later in the day. Removals. Removals is where I kind of nitpick at discs because I have gotten used to messy removals. It's just part of using discs. It is worth the price of admission for any menstrual disc, in my opinion. If you like any menstrual disc and you want to have a really comfortable period, I say that you're probably going to have to desensitize yourself a little bit to the process of removals.
So that's mostly watery, so it's actually not as messy as I thought. It's not hard, but it's slippery. It's not my favorite, but I could do it.
Because removals will, in a lot of cases, especially on a heavy day, especially if you don't or did not self-empty the disc, can, when you pinch, get blood on your thumb, or when you hook, get blood on your finger. Like, there's a lot of ways a disc removal can be messy. You're gonna be over a toilet, but I would say if you're new to reusable discs of any brand or Flex Reusable that you're watching this, try to remove it the first time in the shower. This just sort of gives you this peace of mind that you're not going to get blood on your rug or blood on the floor or whatever. With practice, it can certainly reduce mess when you really understand like what works for your body, what you should do to reduce the mess. You get to know your period and your product better over time. So it's not a mess-free removal. For me, it was not, and it may not be for you, but if all the other things about the disc meet your needs, it's probably still worth it. There are discs that are less messy to remove. The salt disc has a notch, so when you pull it, it does like this. And of course, the first disc designed to have a notch was the Cora. Same story, you pull a finger, it kind of helps reduce that mess. And then the Hello Disc Reusable was designed specifically to be low or no mess. It kind of like comes out, you protect your finger, and then it dumps backwards. So in most cases, it's gonna be low mess, and in a lot of cases, it can even be no mess, which is the experience for me. When I first started with reusable discs and the disposable disc, I was very, very turned off by mess. I'm not gonna lie, it almost ruined the experience for me, but I went ahead and weighed the pros and the cons. A messy removal was worth kind of getting through and washing my hands for because everything else about discs was perfect for me. The insertion process was definitely easy for me, but I say that as someone who also finds other brands pretty easy.
All right, we're gonna keep going with this one because I cannot try that other cup. I can't. So I can insert most discs one-handed, but I tend to go for two. I do think the Flex is easy to insert one-handed. I'm done.
I don't struggle to insert the Hello disc, although I know some people have mentioned that in their reviews. I don't struggle to insert Cora. I don't struggle to insert Luma. I did struggle a little bit to insert the salt disc because of the wider notch, but that was struggle on the bottom end. It was not struggle on the top end. These are the same product, but the Flex disc does get a little bit narrower at the tip and is a little bit firmer, which does influence how well and easy it is to insert. The salt disc has a little bit of a rounder top, and this is kind of the same for any other reusable menstrual disc. It's a bit wider at the top when you fold it, and then you try to do it like that, and it's going to start unfolding as you insert unless you hold it. This one, because it's a little bit firmer, slimmer at the top, you insert it, and it seems to stay a little bit slimmer before it starts opening. So even though I've never really struggled with inserting other reusable discs, if you have, this is definitely a very appealing design aspect. And it's like as simple as it gets, but it's very effective. So I give them full props for coming up with an idea to make it easier to insert. I like to do comparisons with discs, and in previous reviews, it was really easy for me to just compare the 3 or 4 brands that existed to the new brand, but we're getting into a world where there's so many reusable discs. So I just kind of wanted to compare it to some of the one-size discs specifically because that's going to be a little less time consuming and I'm like getting hot filming. So here it is next to the Flex disposable. Definitely not as firm, but it is the firmest disc. So if you like this, this is as close as you can get in a reusable option. This is the Flex Reusable in the Luma High. Before some of the other brands came out, when people said they liked the Flex Disposable, I would always recommend the Luma High because it was the closest in firmness and size. But now we have a few different options, and obviously now Flex has their own reusable, which would be easier to make a direct comparison in. The Flex Reusable and the Cora disc, these are not the same size. This is a one size, but it is actually smaller. It's 65. This is 69 millimeters in diameter, but they're both round. And in this case, the basin is a little more structured for Cora. The Hello disc, which is 68 millimeters. This is 69. This is also like a rounder rim, and this is like a very pronounced, protruding, straight rim. And of course, the removal system is existent on the Hello disc. You can use these loops and wear it if you have a high cervix. This one does not have the removal system. And this is not a one-size disc. It is a sized disc because they make a smaller version, but this is a close comparison. This is the Salt regular reusable disc. This is the Flex. It has the removal notch, and it has a lot more structure to the basin as well compared to the very pedal soft version of the Flex reusable. And then this is the earliest reusable disc that I'm aware of, and that is the Ziggy. Now it's the size B. It used to be just that it had this one size, but it is oblong, and this is 69 millimeters. So this is their large slash used to be one size option, and this is the Flex one size reusable. And then a close comparison, not just in size and in capacity and also in design, is the Nixit. Nixit reusable also has like a very pedal soft basket, but it has a double rim, which I actually don't think really makes a difference in how it leaks or not. It's just kind of a feature, but not a feature that does anything specific for making it work better or worse. It's just a feature. But they're so different in firmness. Nixit is a 2, and the Flex reusable is a 4.5. So it's very similar, but if you like this, but you want it softer, then this would be a good option. Flex reusable is the firmest reusable disc. It's 4.5. All of these, Luma, Cora, Hello, and Salt, are about a 3.5. The rim shape and the thickness changes a little bit between them, but they're all about the same firmness when you squeeze them. The Ziggy size B is a 3 on the firmness scale, so it's a little bit softer than some of the other brands and definitely softer than Flex reusable. I get along with just about every reusable disc, and the Flex reusable was no exception. Totally comfortable, totally leak-free, did all the things it was supposed to. It was not the least messy to remove, but other than that, it was like a really good experience for me. I don't think that it's going to be my favorite. Obviously, I not only am biased towards the Hello disc because I helped design it, but it just is a better disc for me. I love the removal process. It makes it super easy. But I would say all the other things outside of removal, this was just as comfortable as even my most favorite disc. Because Period.Shop is really committed to offering products for the full spectrum of needs, we do have the Flex reusable on our store. You can buy it from Period.Shop. That's it for this review. Thanks so much for watching and being here. If you're new, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And you can find me on social media at Period Nirvana on Instagram, TikTok, all those places, sharing shorter educational videos. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. I personally, Flex Disc, oh my God, there's a lizard. The Flex, what? And the Fem, why can't I say this?